Welcome back to Buckeye Readers Chat. I'm Nicole.
I'm Krista.
And today we want to talk to you about books that are related to true crime. I think this one's really fun for me because I really enjoy true crime. I've read several of the books, including I'll Be Gone in the Dark, which is one of my all-time favorite books. But I also listen to true crime podcasts. I find the stories and the motivations to be really interesting. What about you, Krista?
My husband and I like to watch TV channels that are actually based upon true crimes.
Yeah.
And then try, even though we may know the story, we're picking up different tidbits or facts along the way, and the ones that we're not aware of, we're trying to figure out how all the pieces came together. But it intrigues me.
Yeah, I mean, true crime, especially murder and some of the awful things that people do, it's definitely some of the worst things out there. But reading about them and listening to stories about them, I think has caught a lot of people's interest because there's so many different motivators to what could have led to the actions that they took or things like that. In particular, that's kind of the reason why I like I'll Be Gone in the Dark. Michelle Mcnamara is the author of this book. She is an amazing part of the story behind what eventually leads to the capture of the Golden State Killer, which is the term that she coined. That was the name that she gave him because during the early investigations, there were so many different names for this person because they hadn't connected the dots that the early crimes related to him that were happening all over California were the same person. And so eventually she was able to come up with the name, the Golden State Killer, when she was able to connect the dots that this was the same person.
One of the things that caught my attention is he was a cop. He was an ex-cop, and then he became a mechanic and a truck driver. Yeah. So it allowed him to travel, I want to say, undetected.
Right.
Because that was his work route.
And that was one of the things that I thought was really fascinating about the story is they were able to see that this person had the knowledge of police procedures, but I don't think, I don't believe that early on they were able to connect those dots that this would be somebody that had worked in law enforcement. But looking back at cases like this, I believe that they're able to start making those connections a lot quicker and hopefully solve these crimes a lot faster. So,
and it may be part of the reason that it took them so long to arrest him because he knew the procedures, he knew the processes.
Right. Yeah, so that one's a really fascinating read. It makes for a really great audiobook listen. I loved it. Another one that's a really popular case is Charles Manson's. And what do you know about Charles Manson?
The fact, like when you look, he was convicted of first-degree murder, but history says, or literature says, he never actually physically, so he was a brilliant man because the way he was able to manipulate people to do what he wanted them to do is scary and sad.
And it's such a notorious case, and there's so many major players that happen to be a part of that story, and Sharon Tate being a part of that story too. It makes there's just one more dynamic. It's not just a person doing a bad thing, it's a person doing a bad thing with a bunch of other people involved, and that changes things very quickly.
And he ran undetected for years, committing all these crimes.
Well, and the other thing that I find fascinating about true crime too is like looking back at these crimes, we can say, so like the Golden State Killer, he was really active in the 70s and the 80s, and then Charles Manson's crimes were happening in the 60s. And then, I mean, we look at these and these all happened so long ago. Obviously crime is still happening right now, but you look at some of these cases and the way that the Golden State Killer was able to get into people's homes would not be possible today. The way that people have cameras set up around their homes, the security systems that are more accessible for people to purchase and put into their homes would have made things very different for him back then. And so I kind of, as I was hearing the story and listening to the different cases related to him, I started to kind of question, like, are some of these criminals a testament of their time. Like, what kind of crimes are we going to see in the future related to the technology that we have access to today, and the culture that's set up around people,
and the DNA testing, and the tools and mechanisms that are available now to law enforcement.
Right.
Like you said, with cameras, someone's face.
Right. Well, and that's actually one of the things that inevitably gets the Golden State Killer caught, is the DNA testing back in the 70s and the 80s was not top notch, and now it is. And you can test a family member and be able to find out who somebody was and what they had done without them ever really being in a system on their own. So it's just very fascinating how this all works. One of the other stories that I really find interesting, James Patterson has a series where he kind of reviews true crime cases, and so this one in particular has the story of Dee Dee Blanchard and Gypsy Rose, which I think is, there's really a lot of awful things that have happened, but I think that story is just filled with so much tragedy, because the amount of mental illness that led to the events that in which got Dee Dee Blanchard killed is just it's paramount. It's just, she had Munchausen's by proxy, and she was parading her daughter around as somebody who was chronically ill, somebody who was going to die young, and she was manipulating people into giving her money, giving her a home, giving her everything she needed, as well as attention. And there's some really interesting documentaries on her. This book has a really good version of the story, and I just find this one so interesting and tragic. And it's not just somebody who went out of their way to kill somebody because they wanted to. There were so many,
like, mental illness,
so many things at play that led to what happened. So that's what makes the story so interesting.
I wonder, like, again, back in today's technology, your medical records follow you wherever you go.
Right.
And so regardless of what hospital or what doctor you go to, they're going to be able to see you've been treated here, here, and here.
Yeah, and you bring up a really good point, because in regards to that story, Dee Dee Blanchard was able to falsify her daughter's medical records and take her all over the place. And she had enough medical knowledge, being, I think, either she was previously a nurse or she had some background in nursing, that she was able to dupe the system in a way. And when some doctors did start to get suspicious, she would cut and run and get out of there. So
and now it follows you.
Right. So would the events of that story have ever really been able to happen the way they did now? I have not. So, and then of course we've got The Devil in the White City, which is another notorious book about true crime. And this one tells the story about the first U.S. serial killer, H.H. Holmes. So
this is interesting. It was interesting research.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, we'll see you guys next time. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.